Hello, and welcome back to episode 28 of Legend of the GLORIO Heroes. This is your premiere recap and discussion podcast for the legendary 1988 science fiction OVA. I'm your host, G. You can also call me the champion of the people. And by the people, I mean the collective oligarchy of minor nobles. And with me, as always, on his righteous crusade for revenge against the Imperial powers that wronged him, is my co-host, Iro.
I think the voices will stop once I claim the Emperor's head.
Yes. As famously quoted by Yang Wen Li, the voices will stop once I have taken Reinhard's head. For those of you who didn't pick up on that, both Iro and I have been playing a lot of Fire Emblem Three Houses lately. And don't worry, we're not going
to have a game to be playing while watching Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yes.
So I cannot help but see parallels to Galactic Heroes everywhere now.
Yes, everywhere. We have become those people. Yeah,
who are
like, wow, this situation reminds me of that time when Reinhard said the thing.
We've had it on the brain for a while.
Yeah, I don't want to say that the game, don't worry, we're not going to talk too much about the game. We know y'all are here for our hot takes on Legend of Galactic Heroes and not other boring stuff. But, we'll just say that, maybe while this new Fire Emblem doesn't quite match up to Galactic Heroes' writing pedigree, that there are some fun, if purely coincidental, parallels between our enjoyment of Galactic Heroes and the new Fire Emblem.
We talk about Fire Emblem in more depth on the normal podcast, the GLORIO Chat.
Yes, I will say though, Iro, I gotta ask, because I was thinking about this as I was mouthing off this bit, but I think we have pretty good parallels for some of the characters, right? Like Claude, the leader of the Golden Deer, we initially joked and said he was basically hot Rubinsky, but he's actually more young, but happens to have some shades of that Rubinsky pragmatism. And then, we look at Edelgard. Edelgard is obviously Reinhard. I mean, she's even got her own Oberstein.
Yes.
But the more I thought about it, I was like, actually, who's Dimitri?
I don't know.
The leader of the Blue Lions. I feel like we've joked about, the parallels between the other two house leaders and their Galactic Heroes counterpart, but I feel like Dimitri actually, I'm not sure if he has a Galactic Heroes counterpart.
Not really.
Is there anybody in Galactic, for those listening, maybe we're just kind of, there's so many characters in this show, so maybe we're just missing, but, is there a character in Galactic Heroes who, is fundamentally, or he puts on the airs of being fundamentally righteous and, just, but is actually, barely concealing, this thinly veiled bloodlust inside of him that is just, begging to break out at any given moment?
Louis Mashengo.
Yes. It turns out that Mashengo's cool, calm demeanor is just a front for the violence he truly wishes to inflict on those who have wronged him in the FPA.
Indeed.
I mean, it takes I could see calling fucking Louis Mashengo the boar of Iserlohn after he fucking ripped that stone pillar out with his bare hands and crushed
hurled it down a hallway.
Yes, hurled it down a hallway.
Yeah, I think that's a Gambit in Fire Emblem.
Yeah, those feats of strength are quite similar to some we have seen from Dimitri, so perhaps that tracks. But we can't keep this bit going. We got a big podcast to get through, but before we do that, Iro has helpfully reminded me and is helpfully reminding you guys that today, or whatever, by the time this goes out,
within the last between the last podcast and this podcast,
yes, it will have been 1 full year since Iro and I embarked on this journey amongst the sea of stars.
Yeah, a mere fraction of Ali Heinesen, the length of his journey.
Yes, indeed. On the other hand, our journey, we got roughly, based on my calculations here, anywhere from 4 to 6 times the amount of time that Yang hoped to get after the Battle of Vermilion to recoup his losses. But yes, it's been a year of watching this show. I feel like
it's been a constant in the back of our minds.
Yeah, this show has just back when we first had the idea of like starting this, when Iro and we didn't record a podcast for this, unfortunately, but when we watched My Conquest is the Sea of Stars, the first Legend of Galactic Heroes movie, a year ago, and we were like, this was like right after we had finished D&T, and it was just kind of weighing on our minds, like, is now the time? Like, is the political landscape and the anime zeitgeist, like, was now the time to share with the world, some important and clearly never before discussed takes on this venerated piece of science fiction anime.
Of course, like 3 podcasts in, I found out that there was another like long-running Legend of Galactic Heroes Watch podcast,
Of course,
going on at the same time with like substantially more internet famous people.
Yeah, but I think,
but they're not as cool as us.
I think it's no coincidence that High Dive started pushing Legend of Galactic Heroes so hard right around when we started podcasting. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Not at all.
I think that our contribution to the zeitgeist is the linchpin holding it all together. You could say that Legend of the GLORIO Heroes is the linchpin of the entire Western Legend of the Galactic Heroes discourse.
Yeah. We're like Iserlohn.
Exactly. We're like Iserlohn. We're just one spot in the galaxy, but we represent so many things, both material and symbolic.
Indeed.
If
only we might have some money.
Yeah. If indeed, if only look, we're still waiting on that check from High Dive, but one of these days. In all seriousness, it's been a hell of a ride, and thank you to everybody who stuck with us all this way, and I hope you'll stay with us all the way to what is rapidly looking to be the bitter end. We should just get into the next 3 episodes.
We're covering episode 79, 80, and 81. All titled The Battle of the Corridor.
It's all fighting this week, y'all. Like, we talk about like how we love the fights, we love the talking, but we really love the fights. I think this interesting trio of episodes does a great job of reminding you that like fights are great, but fights are also great in moderation.
You want a whole three full episodes, almost an hour of screen time of just nothing but space battle?
Yeah, like, this show's got you covered, and man, let's just say that Yang was channeling the big mood of our feelings about these 3 episodes by the end of them, because wow, what a sequence of events. We should just get right into it. So we start with episode 79.
Episode 79, Battle of the Corridor, Part 1, the Invincible and the Undefeated.
Yes. So we cut to our friend Bittenfeld, who has just received the message from Iserlohn, and Bittenfeld is pissed. He is mad, and that is because the message he gets is a letter from Merkatz telling him that he should betray Reinhard. And we kind of get an interesting bit here because, like, we have characterized Bittenfeld as kind of a dumbass, and this series of episodes continues to prove that Bittenfeld is a dumbass, but he's also a dumbass who is, like, self-aware. Like, he knows he's an idiot, and, like, does not let himself fall into, like, some of the classic tricks of your, like, your military, like, gung-ho dumbass in other fiction.
Yeah. He there's several times across these episodes where, like, he sees what they're trying to do and makes a somewhat more rational choice than perhaps his reputation would speak to.
Yeah, like Bittenfeld kind of, again, he exhibits some, like, surprising self-awareness on his own part, where he's like, oh, this plan is probably meant to capitalize on, like, who I am as a person. Like, they know my reputation. I know I'm an idiot who, like, charges headfirst into everything. Like, they're trying to take advantage of that, and as much as I hate it, I need to think about this in a way I don't normally do.
Yes.
And it's like, that is, as much lighthearted shit as we give Bittenfeld, I can't appreciate, like, as fun as it is to watch Yang just clown on Empire Admirals sometimes, it is more satisfying when his opponent is at least putting up their best effort.
Yeah. And so this plan is basically meant to psych out Fahrenheit and Bittenfeld.
Yes. This is
To
a little
make
bit
them think they'll come out and try to trick us into attacking, so we should not attack.
Yes, and this is a little bit similar to the tricks Yang played on Lutz when he took Iserlohn. A kind of similar. Was it Lutz or was it Wall? No, Wallen got his hand cut off. It was Lutz. Where again, the trick to play on Lutz was, or Lutz only saw as far, again, like Bittenfeld here, only sees as far as, oh, what is this trick's intent? Whereas what Yang is actually pulling is, what will they think
what
of
will they
this
think is my trink's intent?
Yes. What will they think of my highly obvious trick? And will they do the thing I hope they'll do because they know of my reputation? And so, yeah, Bittenfeld and Fahrenheit kind of. The point is, they arrive at the conclusion. It's funny, they're discussing like what's Yang's plan, and like Bittenfeld and Fahrenheit basically arrive at the conclusion that, well, regardless of Yang's intent, we know this dude is about to pull some shit on us.
So we need to stop it and wait, and
yes. So
make sure we don't do anything rash.
Right, but turns out this is exactly what Yang wants because Mecklinger's fleet approaches Iserlohn from the other side as planned, and before he can get close to Iserlohn, he gets rebuffed by an FPA fleet
over 20,000 ships.
Of over 20,000 ships, and we know that this is Yang's entire fleet. That Yang has nothing left in the can. This is all he has. But Mecklinger comes to the conclusion that,
if they can field this many ships on their back end only, they must have way more ships than we originally anticipated.
Yeah, Mecklinger comes to the conclusion that Yang wouldn't be foolish enough to leave Iserlohn unguarded. This must just be the rear guard, and if his rear guard is this strong, we have a bigger fight ahead of us than I thought.
We have to make sure to defend Empire territory.
Yes. Mecklinger comes to the conclusion that if his fleet is that large, then the actual prospect of Yang busting through Mecklinger to go straight to Odin is actually fairly reasonable. And so Mecklinger backs off, which, again, these are we know that Mecklinger is getting taken for a ride here, but these are reasonable conclusions for these admirals to come to, right?
You want to make people who are not in contact both make totally reasonable decisions that are nevertheless in conflict with each other.
Exactly. And so what Yang manages to do here is push Mecklinger off his back, which makes the defense of Iserlohn a lot easier. So because of that trick, now Yang's fleet only has to worry about the fight from one front. So with that taken care of, we go on. We move on to the next kind of phase of this battle, where Bittenfeld gets another message, and it's from Merkatz saying that he would like to meet with Bittenfeld. And Bittenfeld is fairly sure that once again this is a trap. He suspects that what's going to happen here is that Merkatz is going to ask to parley, and then as soon as attacks break down, his fleet's going to come out of hiding and try to sucker punch the Black Lancers. Of course, because Bittenfeld knows or thinks this is a trap, he decides to attack first, and so he kind of goes after the fleet. But it turns out that Merkatz is not there this time. The Shiva is being captained by none other than one Dusty Attenborough. I will say, I maybe gave Dusty a little too much shit earlier because, I was like, what does Dusty even do for Yang's fleet?
Hold on. But Fischer is on the Shiva.
Oh, right. Fischer is on the Shiva. My bad. But Dusty's the one commanding the fleet, though, right?
Let's see here. Dusty's flagship is the Massasoit.
Okay, my bad. Yes, I got it mixed up.
I believe Merkatz is on the Hyperion now.
Yes, you're right. All right.
And Yang is on the Ulysses.
Yes. So everybody has switched ships, but the point remains Dusty is the one in command of this battle. And I will say these next 3 episodes, I think, do a good job of acquitting Dusty's admiralship. I think that we always are like, what does Dusty even do, right?
Yes.
Shenkop is your hammer, right? You send Shenkop in to just fuck shit up. Merkatz is the reliable second in command. Chazalnu is the logistics guy.
Dusty is the trickster.
Right. Poplin is the ace pilot / toxin specialist / career counselor. But what does Dusty do? Dusty writes books and talks shit. But we find out that Dusty is a very... Here's the thing, right? Like, we always say, oh, Yang's the one coming up with these plans. This is all Yang's plans and everybody is just following his orders. But we see here with Dusty in these next 3 episodes that he actually is a fairly capable commander in his own right. And the dude has quite a few tricks up his own sleeve as well. Like...
Right. Throughout these episodes, we kind of see that even if it's everyone just following Young's orders, like, those orders wouldn't be possible unless the people carrying them out were as skilled as they are.
Yes, and so we kind of see that with Dusty here. Like, Dusty proves to be the master of the feigned retreat tactic, which he puts into use many times in this next 3 episodes.
The Joestar family secret technique.
Run away. But yeah, so Bittenfeld attacks, pushes right into Dusty's fleet. So Dusty pretends to flee, but Bittenfeld realizes this is a trap, and so he also pulls back, which pisses off Dusty a bit, because Dusty's like, oh great, I'm gonna have to put my ass out there again. So he pushes in a little bit further. This time Bittenfeld takes the bait. However, Bittenfeld knows this is bait, so what he does is he pretends to retreat, but then actually, like, switches the afterburners into, like, full gear, and
pounces harder than they thought
than Dusty is prepared for. However, what this does, because Bittenfeld pushes so hard into Dusty's formation, which admittedly is not good for Dusty.
Right. It means Fahrenheit has to come in to help out.
Fahrenheit gets dragged into the fight. Because and the thing that happens here is because we're fighting at the Iserlohn corridor, where, as we see multiple times in this episode, the corridor is a real thing. You do not want to be caught outside the Iserlohn corridor, because we see that ships that get caught outside the corridor just basically instantly explode.
Right. I think, obviously it's harder to do this in an older show. I think D&T kind of did a better job of showing exactly why, because it is in the middle of, like, a nebula or something.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it does it in a more visually flashy way. But I think at the core of it, the point you're supposed to get is that, like, even in space,
just too much space stuff.
Yeah, that even in space, or at least even in the Legend of the Galactic Heroes version of space, space still has a very real terrain to its own. And because Fahrenheit gets dragged into this battle, the thing is that they're fighting in the Iserlohn corridor, and before, Bittenfeld could slug it out with Dusty one-on-one. There was enough room. But once Fahrenheit gets dragged in, all of a sudden, now neither of the Empire fleets have enough room to maneuver in the Iserlohn corridor.
Kind of caught in the bottleneck.
Yes, and because of this, Bittenfeld realizes that, actually, now he needs to push even harder, because he needs to push even harder into Dusty's formation to create some room for himself. And this is when Yang's fleet springs their concave formation.
Yes.
Which basically...
charging into the crossfire of Tyrion fleet.
Yes, and because of that, they basically do a very effective kind of half encirclement formation on Bittenfeld and Fahrenheit's fleet.
A lot of half encirclements in these few
episodes. Yes, a lot of half encirclements. Yes. I mean,
just when you're in a choke point, like...
Yes. I mean, I won't get into it too much, because there's no point in me listing every historical occurrence of an effective half encirclement maneuver being used. But let me just say, believe me, half encirclements are, if utilized correctly and if coordinated well, very powerful formation, very destructive formation if utilized correctly. And here it is, because this formation really starts fucking up the Empire fleets, and has the double-on effect of creating some kind of emotional discord between Bittenfeld and Fahrenheit, where the two are kind of blaming each other for kind of cocking up the whole maneuver, because now they're both, like, they're basically elbowing into each other in the same narrow alleyway. And, so
you have people like, you have their adjutants and stuff saying, like, we should just retreat and leave the Fahrenheit / Bittenfeld fleet to deal with this problem.
And, it kind of goes back and forth until finally, I think Fahrenheit's fleet pulls back. They realize that, they're all going to get destroyed at this rate. Meanwhile, Bittenfeld Bittenfeld decides to go for, as he phrases it, a force frontal penetration. Just doing what Bittenfeld does best, which is literally just punch forward in a straight line as hard as he can.
I guess he gets within radio contact distance, and he and Dusty just start shouting like insults at each other.
Yes, fucking holy shit, man! Dusty's fucking diss game in this battle. Like, Iro, by any chance, you have any of the screen caps of some of the shit Dusty said?
Let's see here.
Bittenfeld, because
you'll become space dust in the aftermath of total defeat. We forgave you out of our mercy, but you launched another invasion anyway. Your Kaiser may be handsome, but he's a scoundrel. And so Bittenfeld, like, you bastards!
Yes, this just makes Bittenfeld even more mad. But despite Dusty's best efforts to goad Bittenfeld into his own self-destruction, the Black Lancers,
they're quite strong. I mean, he's charging right in.
Yeah, but it really speaks to. I mean, we will see this time and time again that, like, battles are a numbers game, but they're not always a numbers game. Like, there is a reason.
I do like Bittenfeld saying, like, we outnumber them. If each ship takes out one ship, we'll come out on top.
Yes. Bittenfeld,
just math.
Fucking Bittenfeld's math is it's some real fucking Lipstadt League math. But the thing I was actually going to say is that, like, we will see time and time again in these few episodes that there is a reason why elite troops are glorified in history. Your winged hussars, your French cavalry, your catarafracts, your Russian legionnaires. I mean, not Russian, Roman legionnaires. And with Bittenfeld, the Black Lancers, because we will see time and time again that, like, the thing that maybe, like, Bittenfeld is a very straightforward man, and you could argue that, like, why hasn't this man been destroyed yet? And the reason is, I think we find out in these episodes, is that he's tough enough. His troops are tough enough. His fleet. He has trained his fleet to be tough enough that charging forward is the only strategy they need. And guess what? It's pretty damn effective. Like, the thing that usually brings down a fleet, an army, when all other factors are equal, when it's equal train, or equal numbers and equal equipment, the thing that eventually the thing that really decides then is morale. Which fleet can keep fighting at full capacity, and we're not even just talking about, like, old time war where it's like, oh, like, how can you swing a sword for an hour straight? Can you stab a spear for an hour straight and stay at high morale? Even in fleet battles, this can be, in this battle, can you maintain target lock on the enemy fleet, like 10 out of 10 times, can you make sure that your lasers are hitting the targets 10 out of 10 times after an hour, after 2 hours, after 3 hours, after your losses start to mount up, after you've taken 10% casualties, 20% casualties, can you still maintain, like, top fighting condition? And the answer is, even in Yang's fleet, that's not the case. Like, they are just not that well drilled. But Bittenfeld's fleet, they are that hardcore. And we find that time and time again, even in the face of what are overwhelming casualties. Bittenfeld does not waver, but
charges straight in.
Yes, but eventually,
even when he retreats to, like, and Fahrenheit rotates in, like, once Fahrenheit starts getting shot up, he's just like, let's charge in again.
Right. Like, that's the thing. Like, so what happened? As Iro said, Bittenfeld eventually realizes, okay, I'm taking maybe a little too many bloody noses here in this fight. I better back off, and kind of revolves with Fahrenheit, whose fleet is still relatively fresh. But then, what happens here is that, so Fahrenheit kind of pushes in, and Fahrenheit starts to get encircled once again. We know a lot about Bittenfeld's tactical acumen. Unfortunately, we don't really know as much about Fahrenheit's specialty, and we're kind of finding out here that, like, for better or worse, maybe Fahrenheit was, like, a good admiral, but he's not a legendary admiral, so to speak, because he gets encircled, forcing Bittenfeld to push back in. Despite the heavy casualties, he goes back in to try and save Fahrenheit. What happens next is kind of
Merkatz
is kind of
fleet
interesting.
gets in.
Yes. Merkatz's fleet joins the fight.
sortie, his apparently his strategy of choice is getting close and launch the fighters.
Yes. Merkatz kind of goes in for kind of the classic battleship strategy of like getting close and like unload the payload, which in this case are the like small fleet, the small attack fighters, Poplin and Karin and such. We see them kind of getting ready.
Get some fun like shot composition echoing of Julian's first sortie in a fighter with Karin.
Yeah. We see Karin kind of going through the same kind of first battle jitters that Julian had in his first battle. She manages to down a ship though, so good on her. Like it looks like a pretty big ship too, not like just a little fighter. She looks like she takes out a destroyer or a cruiser, or
like how Poplin tells her, if you can do about 62.4% of what I taught you, you'll make it out just fine.
Yes. Poplin continues to be just an omnidisciplinary man, just a great advice, good squad leader. Great at naming great at naming his fighter squads.
I didn't catch which one of dry gin, liquor, sherry, and absinthe is Karin, though.
Yes, we'll have to double check that. I will say it's a little bittersweet because this is the first time Poplin has this is actually maybe the first time Poplin has like listed off the fighter squads ever since the fateful battle in which Applejack and Konev were lost. So which is weird. It's wild to think it's been that long, but like it really has.
He's been busy infiltrating her cult, and
it's just weird. Like
Poplin his poisons.
Like it's just like Poplin, the guy we assumed was just going to be the fighter pilot, has done so much
on the ground.
Then.
Yeah,
like it was almost weird to see him like be an ace fighter pilot again, but. So they kind of go in.
And, and Fahrenheit is like, I know this strategy. It's Merkatz.
Right, because we find out
flashbacks.
We are reminded that Merkatz and Fahrenheit spoke to each other in like the first episode of this entire show.
Two of them were two of the 5 admirals who came to admonish Reinhard for his bold strategy.
Yeah, and so we kind of remember, right? These two were like colleagues, a mentor to Merkatz was a mentor to Fahrenheit, and like. It's a little sad, but like here, the teacher must destroy the student, and
yes.
We find out that
Fahrenheit's ship has a sick wave motion gun on it.
Yeah, which they didn't show this before, but I don't know why they don't bust this out every fight. But Fahrenheit's flagship just has a fucking Yamato-style wave motion gun, just blasts the fuck out of the middle of Yang's fleet. But as a result, he basically created an opening for Bittenfeld to escape through. But because of that action, he basically paints a target on himself, and Merkatz's fleet kind of descends on that flagship and cripples it. And Fahrenheit is mortally wounded in the attack.
Get some primo Imperial drama here.
The most fucking
melodrama.
Yes. It would not be the Empire if they were not fucking melodramatic to the bitter end.
Yes.
Fahrenheit is mortally wounded. There is no chance for his escape.
One of his light flashes before his eyes about how he joined the military just to be able to eat. But because he was able to serve the incomparable Kaiser, he had a fortunate life.
Yes, and he thinks as he thinks about this, some young adjutant kind of runs up to him, and is like, Fahrenheit, Commander, we got to get you out of here. And Fahrenheit's like, no, it's too late for me.
I refuse to take a child's life when I die.
Yes, and this kid is like, well, then at least give me a gift that I may present to the Kaiser as a display of your life and loyalty. And Fahrenheit, like we didn't really know Fahrenheit that well, but like, oh my god, Fahrenheit living up to the Empire tradition of being the most dramatic motherfuckers in the universe is like, your life is my keepsake. Make sure you give it to the Kaiser. And it's just like, Fahrenheit, like we hardly knew you.
Explodes.
And, explodes.
And, we wrap up episode 79.
And we will state that Bittenfeld, because of that opening Fahrenheit created, Bittenfeld and the Black Lancers are allowed to escape.
Indeed. That leads straight into episode 80, Battle of the Corridor Part 2, Kaleidoscope.
This shit just doesn't let up. It does not let up.
Indeed. Reinhard gets a message about how the battle has begun.
Yes.
Bittenfeld and Fahrenheit were already in combat.
Yes, and that
Uh,
Fahrenheit's life has been lost. The look of incredulity on Reinhard's face
uh,
in this scene here is so good. Like he is just completely blindsided. Like I guess Reinhardt is just so used to like complete 100% unwavering loyalty from his like
right.
subordinates that every time it doesn't go as planned, like this and Lutz, like every time people don't obey his orders to the letter, he is just like so surprised. He is so fucking like incensed at the concept. He is
Yeah.
so angry.
He starts out being super mad about like, how dare they try and undermine my glory.
Yes,
And
yes.
then before he calms down a little and he's like, no, I guess Yang Wen Li probably tricked them somehow.
Yeah, yeah, I do like. Yes, I like that. Reinhard like is like, ah, those idiots. And he's like, ah, no, I shouldn't blame my kids. This is Yang's fault.
It's always Yang's fault.
It's always Yang's fault somehow. He probably played some dumbass trick that they fell for, and like
Yeah.
I can't blame them for it because even my best admirals in my fleet regularly fall for Yang's bullshit.
Even I have lost Yang Wen Li.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
Meanwhile, Yang returns to Iserlohn as
yeah,
well.
we get
You
some
know,
casualty numbers from the battle.
yes, yes. We find out that Bittenfeld and Fahrenheit both lost anywhere from a third to half of their entire fleet, which,
Mm-hmm.
again, these are pretty major losses.
I think in the media, a lot of the time, enemy forces like go down to the last man.
Yes, yes. Like if you play a lot of video games, you play a lot of RTS or turn-based strategy games like Fire Emblem,
Rout the enemy, which
you
means
know,
kill all of them.
yes, the objectives usually route the enemy to the last man. When like this is certainly given a very like I think skewed concept of battle to the mainstream that kind of has this idea that battles are decided battles are not decided until there's nobody left on one side of the battlefield. When like this is demonstrably not true.
In actual battle, once you saw that your side was like significantly weaker than the other side, you would probably start to mount a retreat at some point.
yes, well, yes and no. I mean that's
And
the
I
thing,
mean,
right?
less like obviously depends on the circumstances.
Right. Well, I guess I mean to speak more to it. Kind of speaks to the actual like frailty of human like morale and human like human minds in a way
Mm-hmm.
because generally military academics generally have agreed that 10 to 20% is considered like major casualties in a battle. So that is 10 to 20% of an entire field's forces lost to actual battle is considered a significant loss. And I think it's very easy to look at that number and be like, that's not that big of a number. Like if you start at 100 and I go down to 90, like I could still conceivably beat you. It's very easy to think in those terms, but
Mm.
it kind of doesn't take into account like the human psyche, the human experience. When you're on the front lines and out of 10 of you, one of you's dropped dead, now two of you have dropped dead, like that has a very strong psychological like domino effect,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very easy, like if out of a group of 10, it is very easy to start thinking that you might be the next person. And that is why like people break. And this is why like often the actual most like special thing about like I listed many of those like famous elite troops in history. Like the actual most famous thing about them, I mean, beyond their like their better armor or their better equipment, the actual thing they tended to have as an advantage is training, morale, drilling. Like it takes a lot of time and effort to train a dude to like look at his buddy die and be like, I'm still fighting. Like, I'm gonna keep
Right.
going. That's very difficult. That's a very difficult mindset to train, and like that is why like those like that those mindsets are considered like the elite of militaries. So with that context given, up to half your fleet is major.
Yeah.
Like entire military divisions in history have been dissolved, like entirely dissolved because of casualty rates that high. Like when your casualty rates are that high, sometimes military command will think, you know what, it might not even be worth the
Not
money
worth
to like
keeping this squad around.
right, like
Yeah.
it might be easier to just split them up and just distribute them amongst other like to reinforce other squads because like at that point, like unless and I guess that's the thing we find out here that like Binfield's not out of this game yet, despite losing almost half of his fleet. Like he is back in the fight, and we find out that is because like the Black Lancers, like even at half strength, are still like that integral to the efforts of this battle. You know, they're just that elite of a unit. And so yeah, to kind of get
the first time High Admiral has died in battle.
yes, that is true. You know, this is I'm not going to say rare. In fact, I would argue that I'm surprised this has not been more common in Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Maybe some of this is due to Yang's inherently kind of gentle is not the right word,
Passive.
but his more passive type of warfaring. Like, whereas like I think a more pragmatic Yang, frankly, I mean, this is not. I'm not going to play. Look, I am not going to play armchair general to Yang Wenli. But it could be argued that perhaps Yang's efforts would pay higher dividends if he went for more of a like cut the head off of the snake tactic or approach to his battling.
Right.
Because as we begin to see time and time again, the thing that Reinhard actually like his actual main strategic advantage in these battles is not just Reinhard von Lohengram, the man himself. It's Reinhard von Lohengram and the like dozen highly talented admirals he has underneath him. And like each one of those is actually a tremendous loss to Reinhard because they represent like, you know, not just leadership, but like a reliability of tactical acumen, you know, like when you are commanding a fleet as large as Reinhard's, you cannot do what Yang does. Like when we see Reinhard command the fleet versus Yang commanding the fleet in this battle, there is a contrast in the two, right? Like when Yang commands a fleet, he's like, this wing go here, like flank from this position, you move in from this angle. He is micromanaging because like he has to, because his fleet is much smaller. Reinhard's fleet is so large, he cannot do that. He has to say, Mittermeyer, handle that side of the battle, right? Like he can't micromanage that entire flank. He just has to trust Mittermeyer enough that he will handle it.
Because there's only 10 number keys to keybind your squads to.
Exactly. It's like old school StarCraft. He can only highlight up to like 15 units at once, you know. So like he really has to rely on those macros. But yeah. So anyways, the whole reason for this tangent is Bittenfeld reports his loss to Reinhard. He apologizes for once again fucking things up for Reinhard, and in the most Bittenfeld move imaginable, Bittenfeld continues to fail upwards.
Yes,
from,
as Dusty said. As
Yes.
Dusty said, the miraculous admiral whose rank keeps rising even though he keeps failing.
Yes, because all Reinhard can really say to Bittenfeld is,
"I guess that's just like you, Bittenfeld."
That's so Bittenfeld. That's so Bittenfeld. Coming to the Disney Kids channel near you, airing at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, is That's So Bittenfeld.
Oh God!
I would watch that sitcom in an instant. I would watch the episode where Bittenfeld has to get ready for the school bake sale, and Bittenfeld being Bittenfeld.
600 degrees for 30 minutes is the same as 300 degrees for an hour, right?
Exactly. Bittenfeld. The storyline would go, Bittenfeld has 2 hours to get these cookies ready for the school bake sale. It'd be like, 2 hours? I could make 4 batches in 30 minutes if I cook at double the temperature. And, you know, it would end with Bittenfeld having 10 minutes before the bake sale, like, fucking
buying a bag of Chips Ahoy.
Yes, fucking speeding down through the suburbs in his like black like SUV, his black Lancer, his Koenigs Tiger, 4-wheel drive Koenigs Tiger, down to the supermarket to buy like some like Safeway cookies or something.
God damn it.
Anyways, yes. So Reinhard's basically like, well, Bittenfeld, at least you're consistent. And Bittenfeld is not punished for his actions.
Yep.
Not even like scolded, not even like put on like reserve.
Right.
Bittenfeld is still there, front and center of the next formation of the next battle.
Right. Reinhard's like, I require your skills for the upcoming battle.
Right. And I mean, it really speaks to like Binfield again, kind of a dumbass, but a very useful dumbass and a very unique dumbass. Like there is nobody in the army, there's nobody in Reinhardt's fleet that is quite like Bittenfeld. Like we talk about Mittermeyer kind of being like a smarter version of Bittenfeld, but even then, like Mittermeyer, he's the Gale Wolf. He specializes in like these rapid blitzkrieg tactics. Reuenthal is kind of this all-round tactician, master tactician. We find like Mecklinger, master of logistics or whatever. But like there is nobody that is quite like. Look, subtlety and cunning are all good and well in battle, but sometimes you just need a fucking hammer, and Bittenfeld is the best hammer there is in the entire goddamn galaxy.
Just like opens his coat and there's just 10 hammers hanging.
Yes, just like sometimes, like we saw when Bittenfeld went up against Bucock at Marzadetta. Like sometimes the most well-laid plans just cannot hold up against, sometimes you just need a motherfucker who will just push past everything,
right in.
And that's what Binfield's good for. And so with all that taken care of, the Empire is
posthumously promoted.
Yes, that does happen. And
Empire prepares for their offensive.
Yes, so we
find out that they've put millions of space mines in the corridor.
Yes, Dusty has laid 5 million mines at the entrance of the Iserlohn corridor, which is such a gigantic number I cannot even begin to conceive of it, but also, like, space is big, so...
Yes.
We have a great discussion between Dusty, or not just Dusty, but all of Yang's table, and... I love it. There's nothing really important comes from this conversation other than Mirai is here and he keeps hemming to keep the peace during this discussion.
That's his job.
Yes.
That's why he decided to become part of this crew.
Yes. Just reminding you that Mirai is here for an important reason. Kind of keep discussions on topic, because without Mirai as the Discord moderator, you just know that like the Yang like Discord channel is like descends into like meme posting territory. Like if like Mirai's not there to keep things on track, like Yang's trying to like talk about plans for the next battle, and then like Dusty and Poplin are like posting like Twitter memes like directly into the chat, and like Shenkop will like not stop like posting like pictures of like hot like Instagram models, and like if it weren't for Mirai like shadow banning them for like 5 minutes at a time, like nothing would get done. So thank you for your service, Mirai.
Indeed.
But so we get a great plan here where Empire is talking about, well, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to get past this? And Bittenfeld, despite just having lost a giant battle, is like, fuck the mines. Why don't we just spread Zephyr particles and charge right in? It's like, Bittenfeld, please, you just... your entire fleet was just nearly destroyed. Like, cool it for just a little bit. But, look, it wouldn't be Bittenfeld if he was not the man he is, right? Like, so Reuenthal, however, comes up with a plan. He's like, I got the plan. I got a plan for taking on Yang.
Just basically Bittenfeld's but bigger.
Yes and no, basically. Yes. Like, Reinhard accepts the plan, and basically the plan hinges on the fact that, like, no matter how you get around it, Reinhardt's forces are, like, numerically superior by every single metric. Like, they dwarf Yang's fleet. Like, in a straight up 1v1 fight, Yang's fleet would not stand a chance, right? Yang is holding out purely on geographic advantage. And basically, that geographic advantage is only held by the bottleneck that is the Iserlohn corridor. And if we can get enough numbers through the corridor, eventually we will invalidate that geographic advantage. So, basically, what happens is the fight kind of starts, or no, wait. Before the fight starts, we have a little bit more of Reuenthal talking with Mittermeyer. Kind of Reuenthal kind of once again talking his bullshit. We get a little bit of Reuenthal talking about like, maybe I should commit treason. Which, like, Reuenthal, you just got pardoned like a week ago, and you're already back on your bullshit.
Yup.
But yes, Reuenthal says that the only tacticians that can beat me are Reinhard, Merkatz, you, Mittermeyer, and Yang Wenli, and we should be so thankful that the majority of those on our side. And Mittermeyer gets a little angry about the implications of this discussion, I guess. He's like, don't talk like that, Royenthal. And
Yeah, you're right. Let's just drink instead.
yes. Royenthal's like, you're right, my friend. Let's just break out the wine. The 460 vintage is not as good as the 410 vintage, but
Mm-hmm.
oh no, we'll make do in these hard times for the Empire.
Uh-huh. And so they send Otto Brauhit to sweep up some mines.
Yes, Brauhit is tasked with minesweeping,
slowly make a lane.
Yes, they use the Zephyr Barnacles to create a lane through the minefields. Turns out that Brauhit is kind of basically just a sacrificial lamb to draw the Yang fleet's attention, because the actual play here is that they create 5 separate lanes in the minefield with Zephyr Particles. And the reality of this is that now that there are 5 different potential exit points for the Iserlohn corridor, it spreads Yang's fleet thin. They can't police every single one, and this is a point.
Yeah, and it holds them off while the main Empire fleet can come through the bigger lane the Brauhit opened up.
Yes. And it kind of just gets into the reality that the Empire just has more material resources, and they can afford to fight a battle of attrition that Yang can't. We could call it simple tactics. We could call them brutal tactics. Reinhard is basically just sending men in to die in waves because he can. He has the source, he has the resources, he has the manpower, and Yang does not. And so no matter how many Yang destroys, Reinhard can just send more in. And you could call it a brutal strategy. You could even call it a simplistic strategy. But I would kind of tend to argue that that's kind of a myopic view of warfare. A general uses the resources that are available to them, and if a general uses their superior manpower, to overcome a weaker enemy, that is in and of itself a tactical that is in and of itself a tactical choice.
Yeah.
And if it works and it gets results, then how simple can it really be? I would use this chance to kind of go into a tangent about Ulysses S. Grant, who is actually maybe one of my favorite generals from the Civil War. After
Tell me more,
Sherman. All right, we'll do this real quick. So, real quick. So, in the Civil War, kind of early on in the war between the Union and the Confederacy, kind of one of the initial things that the Union kind of took for granted was its material superiority. The Union kind of rested on its laurels early on in the war, thinking, we got this. We got more troops. We got more guns. How could we possibly lose? And the problem is that, the Union's generals, mainly this is an issue with General McClellan, but this was kind of a trend throughout Union generalship early in the war, is that no general was truly willing to commit to a full battle, right? Time and time again, Union generals would fight these kind of small skirmish battles, and in those small skirmish battles, the material disadvantage was not as pronounced. So the Confederacy could win these smaller one-on-one fights because the Union was they were not willing. They were squeamish is not the right word. I don't want to call them cowardly because, let's be honest, it is difficult to commit lives to a battle, knowing that they will likely be lost. But because the Union time and time again refused to truly commit to just a full-on slugfest, they would just get slowly bled out instead. This changes when Ulysses S. Grant becomes the commander-in-chief of the Union forces. And Ulysses S. Grant often gets kind of unfairly painted as a butcher. He is painted as, the brutal general who just relies on wave tactics and superior numbers. Ulysses S. Grant had no strategy. He had no tactics. He just threw his men after men into the meat grinder of the Confederate lines. But here's the thing Ulysses S. Grant actually understood, is that, yes, this is a very brutal way of fighting war, but also, I lose 100 men, I can have 100 men here tomorrow. The Confederacy loses 100 men, they are not getting them back. I capture 100 Confederate cannons. That's 100 Confederate cannons they are never getting back. They cannot make more. The Confederate captures cannons from me, I can have more made in a week, in a month. I can have troops here, by tomorrow.
Right.
And this is a brutal way of fighting war. Like I'm not taking away from that. It is a very costly way of fighting war. But arguably, it was the way of fighting war against the Confederacy, because the Confederacy often held the tactical advantage, and so long as they were fighting the Union on parity, on equal level, they could win tactical victories. So what Ulysses S. Grant did is basically create a strategic situation that was so overwhelmingly in favor of the Union that it did not matter what the Confederacy did, because the Union could absorb those losses and keep on trucking. And again, you could say what a dumb tactic, what a brain dead approach to war. But again, if that is the approach to war that wins you the war, then how dumb of a tactic is it really? And that's kind of what Reinhard is doing here. He knows he holds a material advantage, and he is taking advantage of it. And and that's why Yang doesn't begrudge him for it. He's like, this is exactly what I would do if I had the numerical advantage. This is war. Lives are going to be lost one way or another. If I can lose 1,000 men now to completely overwhelm my opponent, and end this battle quicker, why wouldn't I? And so that's kind of what happens here. And kind of from there, the battle kind of continues in a very kind of interesting direction, a very interesting back and forth between Reinhard and Yang's fleets.
Yeah,
we have Mittermeyer and Bayerlane kind of doing some flanking maneuvers and spear formations on Yang's fleet. And we could go into every little detail about this, but I think the thing we really want to get into here is that what starts to happen to Reinhard's fleet is that because of their sheer size and because of miscommunication issues, Reinhard's fleet is nowhere near as organized as Yang's fleet. So when Yang needs a fleet somewhere in the battle, that fleet can get there immediately. However, for Reinhard's fleet, because it is so big and is so unwieldy in such a constrained area, Mittermeyer says, I need people here stat. They don't get their stat. And because they don't get there in time, the formation falls apart.
Yeah, he has a specific way in mind of how they'll back up when he orders them to back up, and they don't do it in that way at all, because all we got was order to back up.
Yes.
And it's only so much we can get out of that.
Yeah, yes, totally. And even in this era where they have instantaneous communication, battle maneuvers are very difficult to do. I think because of what happens in the third episode to Edwin Fischer, I think they want to show us this in this battle to kind of foreshadow how important very rapid troop movement is to a battle. And because of this, Yang continues to get these small tactical victories across the battle just by simply outmaneuvering Reinhardt's fleet.
I do a line from Dusty here where he's like, all right, we'll show them our secret weapon again. And Lau is like, do you mean a single point concentration artillery strike? Dusty says, no, I mean pretending to run away.
Yes, Dusty, even here, even in the face of overwhelming destruction, maybe Dusty's best talent is his ability to crack wise under pressure. We kind of see Dusty continue to acquit himself quite well in this battle. Kind of pull, I'd actually argue, is Dusty actually the vanguard of Yang's entire fleet? Because it feels like Dusty's fleet is actually taking the majority of the fire from Reinhardt's fleet time and time again.
It might be.
And again, we talk about Bittenfeld being fucking unbeatable, but props to Dusty for holding up in this battle.
Right.
It takes he's a goofball, but it takes nerves of steel to watch your fleet get slowly decimated and stay strong, to keep your fleet together. And eventually Mittermeyer kind of switches to a new tactic of just kind of rotating his fleet to keep them fresh while kind of slowly wearing down Yang's fleet.
Because what else can you do? There's no room.
Yeah. And finally Merkatz kind of has a plan, or I guess Merkatz, Yang, and Dusty kind of Merkatz comes up with a plan, and basically Merkatz, Yang, and Dusty extend themselves out to kind of draw in Mittermeyer's flank. And then because of that, we have one, I don't know if he's an admiral or a commodore.
Commodore Marino.
Yes, Commodore Marino, who was hidden behind some admirals, kind of comes out and...
his sick, hammerhead shark ship.
Yes, his very cool hammerhead shark ship comes out and tries to pull a Bukow, tries to rush straight at Reinhard to take out Reinhard, who's been exposed by Mittermeyer's overextension.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Steinmetz's fleet kind of maneuvers in time to kind of take the brunt of the attack, and we kind of come to this sad reality that, like, no matter how good the plan was, just no matter how well pulled off it was, the numbers are just too small. Marino does not have enough numbers to push past Steinmetz.
Right. They say in like less than 30 minutes he loses 40% of his
the
squad.
same amount of his fleet that like Bittenfeld and Fahrenheit lost in their entire battle. And it's just like, it's because, like, again, like, even if you pull off the perfect ambush, armed with like nothing more than a toothpick, like, you can only do so much, no matter how well positioned you are. And that's what happens here. Like, Steinmetz is able to kind of push it off, but however, it is
they get his ship.
Yes, Steinmetz pushes away Marino's fleet, but at the cost of his own life.
Get him. He gets crushed by falling debris on the bridge.
Yes, crushes his leg. It's a very, I don't mean to joke, it's a very goofy looking image. Like, it's like this sideways pan from like left to right of like Steinmetz's body being crushed under this piece of debris.
Kind of gruesome.
It's very gruesome. There's a lot of blood, and like we see like pools of blood start to boil from the heat of the explosion. It's gruesome. Again, but I think it's like, again, a reminder that like, these men are flesh and blood, no matter how legendary they might be, and they die all the same.
Steinmetz's death, Reinhard immediately appoints Hilda to the position that he had taken from her.
Yes. And here's an interesting thing I think we're beginning to see, right, is... here's the thing. Hilda's very talented, right? And we're not going to deny this, but...
She chose not to take this position for entirely valid reasons.
Yes, because she does not have military experience. They specifically state Hilda now has the authority equivalent to a vice admiral, and like that has implications, and we are beginning to see like what we suspected is the beginning of Reinhard's brain drain, right? He is beginning to lose talented individuals. This started with Silverbersch, now Steinmetz and Fahrenheit. Like, these are talented people. These are irreplaceable people. And again, Steinmetz's replacement is very competent, but who can say about who Fahrenheit's replacement will be, or Silverbersch's replacement? Like, we can only assume that these people were picked by Reinhard in the first place because he thought they were the best people for the job. But if he keeps losing his best men and they are replaced by the second best or the third best, like, what effect does that have on the whole of Reinhard's empire? And because of that, again, like, let's not get it twisted here. Reinhard didn't have to fight this battle. He really didn't. Like, yes, you can argue like Yang's existence at Iserlohn will exist as an eternal bastion of democracy and exist in direct opposition to Reinhard's empire, but otherwise, like, Reinhard had already consolidated the entire galaxy. He didn't actually need to fight this battle. And now he's starting to pay like the human consequences for it. And
so Rheinthal suggests to send in his like personal strike force, led by Admiral Waldhauser.
Yes,
and puts forth his plan to like retreat and lure Yang fleet in so they can do full encirclement.
Yes,
but when they retreat, the Yang fleet moves in faster than they expected, and they don't have time to get the encirclement going and start taking the hits.
Yes. In fact, Yang, they kind of stated here that because of this scenario, Yang almost pulls off a Vermilion and gets within firing range of Reinhardt's fleet. Basically going in for the KO. But Reinhardt's fleet, because of its sheer material strength and because it's still fresh compared to Yang's fleet, is kind of able to just like concentrate their attacks to the center of Yang's formation, kind of kneecapping its offensive capability. And at the end of the day, they both have to retreat back to their respective sides. But again, kind of what we said earlier, right? Kind of getting to this theme of like Reinhardt clearly holds like the strategic advantage, but because Yang is a more nimble force, like, they can take advantage of the gaps in Reinhardt's tactical like approach. And the episode kind of ends with Reinhard You know,
He's like, yes, this is what I wanted.
right? Yes,
I wanted to have a difficult battle against Yang Wen Li.
yeah, yes. Reinhard becomes
I
the
don't care
fucking.
how many people die.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's definitely that aspect of Reinhard here, where again, Reinhard sort of becomes the final boss of a platinum game, where he's just like, yes, yes, this battle is all I've ever wanted. Just hurt me more, Snake. And kind of he starts biting his finger. It's like, yes, I see it now. I see how I will destroy Yang Wen Li. And implication being that Reinhard has perhaps come up with a strategy to in this battle to fight Yang, and ends the episode on that note.
Yeah. And we move into episode 81, Battle of the Corridor Part 3, End of the Imperial Expedition.
I'm so tired, but I'm probably not as tired as Yang Wen Li.
No.
So,
right. And so, at the start of episode 81, everyone's retreated back to... Young Fleet is retreated back to Iserlohn. It's May the 6th, they say.
Yes.
So everyone's exhausted and sleeps.
Well, they try to anyways. We see... we see that everybody basically comes back here to get a little bit of rest and kind of repair and resupply.
Mm-hmm.
Poplin kind of shows up refreshed, being like, I'm feeling great. And even if I didn't get to sleep with a woman. And Dusty's like, well, they don't make double-sized caskets, so... Which is a very Dusty move.
Yes.
Is this the part where Dusty says, oh, I should put that in my book?
Yes.
Or is that later?
He's like, oh, that was a good line. I'll write it down.
Oh, Dusty. Yang basically admits to everybody, like, we keep fighting on the defensive, they'll wear us down. We have to go on the offensive. We have to break the back of Reinhard's army, because otherwise... Yeah. And so he assigns Edwin Fischer to kind of handle, I think he said his left flank and battlefield maneuvers.
Yeah.
If we were reminded, Edwin Fischer is one of the kind of the three of the B trio of Fischer, Papachev, and Murai. He was involved in putting down that coup on the way to Iserlohn that we tragically never got to see. And he has a good bit here where he's throwing some shade at Dusty's book. Yeah,
maybe I'll also pretend to be smart and write a book.
Yes, it's very good.
And so Yang launches a full frontal attack, going out to cut off the Kaiser's head.
Yes, take the fight to the Kaiser
while they can. And so, but Mueller, Iron Shield Mueller, and the Parseval kind of station himself in front of the Kaiser.
Yes,
yes.
But
plan the defense.
Yang says that, however, this time he has factored in Mueller into the calculations, and that last time, at the Battle of Vermilion, it was only because of Mueller's like very sudden last-minute arrival,
right?
That Reinhard was saved.
Get us a sequence here of Yang like musing to himself about how Mueller and Fahrenheit Steinmetz, they didn't risk their lives like because they believed in autocracy. They just like truly had loyalty to the person Reinhard von Lohengram.
Yes. Kind of young, maybe not the best time for this, kind of having this very introspective conversation with himself about how, like, even for him, right, like he realizes, the people under him who are loyal to me are loyal to me. They're not loyal to democracy. They're not loyal to an ideal.
People follow people, not ideals or institutions.
Right. Like Yang being Yang, of course, he follows an ideal, and he thinks that other people should follow. He thinks that the world would be a better place if people fought for ideals instead of people. But that maybe this is just human nature.
Yeah.
But yeah. So basically, the fight kind of continues on. Yang kind of takes advantage of the space geography, kind of limiting Mueller's tactical advantage here.
A lot of cool shots of ships firing lasers and stuff.
Oh yeah, lots of
lasers bouncing off the Percival. I mean, that's just an asterisk attached to these episodes that says all the time.
Yes. But I will say I'm glad they show that occasionally to give you the explanation for why not every single ship. How come every single ship does not burst into flames the immediate the second they get hit by a laser is, I guess,
They're-
they have vague energy shields that I
Right.
assume get depleted after a while or something.
Yes.
So, you know,
Yeah.
but yeah. So the battle kind of continues, and then because of the kind of constant miscommunication issues that are happening,
Like,
Mittermeyer's
yeah.
Beowulf takes a hit, and Reinhard receives the receives a miscommunication that Mittermeyer has been killed in battle. And we kind of get a
Yeah.
good bit here where, like,
Everyone on the bridge kind of freaks out.
right, yes, like everybody, like Reinhard was already like kind of smarting from losing, like, Fahrenheit and Steinmetz, but like you see here with Mittermeyer, like, oh, this is what happens if you lost somebody like really important,
Right.
like even
We get a-
Royenthal is like,
Yeah,
fucking,
and
like,
here how we see Reinhard look at. We don't see Royenthal's face, but we see Reinhard look at Royenthal and like immediately go like, "Oh boy," like
yeah,
kind of back up a little.
yeah, like everybody is like really on edge, and then the phone guy's like, wait, no, that was a missed call. Mittermeyer says he's fine.
Right.
But
This gives Reinhard the kick in the ass to make a decisive plan.
yes. Reinhard decides that once again he has fallen into Yang's pacing of the battle, where he is trying to outmaneuver Yang, where he's trying to beat Yang in tactics, and Reinhard once again realizes, wait, I am playing the wrong game. Like, this is Yang's game. I need to play my game, and I need to play by my rules, which is, superior numbers, superior firepower, superior leadership.
Yeah, as he puts it, he attempted to go for elaborate and deliberate execution, but what he should be doing instead is crushing them with sheer power.
Yes. So, again, like we said, if it works, it's not an invalid strategy. So Reinhard basically, and here's you could call these wave tactics, but like, even real world wave tactics have a purpose to them. And what we see here is kind of Reinhard using multiple waves of fresh fleets to kind of wear down Yang's fleet. So he kind of starts off with the first fleet of is this Mueller? It sends Mueller in first?
We also get Hilda trying to talk him out of it again.
Right, yes, you're right. Before this all happens, Hilda realizes how bloodthirsty this plan is, kind of tries to beseech to Reinhard, like, please don't do this, like, we don't need to kill Yang, like, the galaxy will be at peace for 100 years, even if you left Yang alone. Mm-hmm. And we have a bit of Reinhard here pushing back on this. Reinhard says kind of, we get flashes of this every now and then where Reinhard's like, you think that just because I let you like talk back to me that you can get away with this all the time, but like, don't fucking get it twisted. I am the Kaiser. Yeah. And rebuffs Hilda's suggestion here.
And so
I like it because Reinhard basically says, Reinhard's like, Hilda, are you trying to imply that it's my fault that Yang is cornered like this? And Hilda's like, yes, it is literally your fault.
That's what I'm saying, yes.
Yes, like, it is literally your fault that Yang is in this position. Like, you never had to fucking poke the bear's nest. You never had to. You chose this. And Reinhard's, he's not having it. He's not having it. He will throw millions of lives into this battle to overwhelm Yang.
So, just begins rotating his fleets in a constant...
Yeah, so basically he just keeps, a little bit similar to his deck of cards plan from Vermilion.
Yeah.
He's basically using kind of a long, narrow, like, formation of, like, rotating fleets.
Tank tread formation.
Yes. So kind of Mueller goes in first, kind of gets pushed back. I'd say for a bit, it says here Mueller retreated after 30 hours of battle. So,
when we get to the end, I will point out how many days it's been.
Yes. So Mueller retreats after 30 hours of fighting with Yang.
Merkatz suggests that they fall back to Iserlohn to use Thor hammer, but
Yang Wenli points out that
because of the formation that Reiner's using, like, it's basically tailor-made to stop the Thor hammer. It's like neutralize the Thor hammer's usefulness, because even if they shoot down this one fleet, all the other fleets will come in from every other direction. And
I mean, the idea is that the Thor hammer is an extremely useful tactical tool, but it is not going to be the end-all, be-all solution to this battle. And that, of course, someone like Reinhard will have already formulated strategies to deal with it. And so they're kind of forced to keep
we see that Reinhard is not eating either.
Yes, yes. We find out that Reinhard took a bite out of a loaf of bread and he's back into the battle. He's just entirely focused on the fight, and Hilda is rightfully worried about his health, both sentimentally and cynically. You could argue that sentimentally it's because, well, she cares deeply for Reinhard, and Reinhard clearly does not take very good care of himself whenever Young is involved,
Yeah, definitely.
And also cynically, if Reinhard gets incapacitated like that, will have issues. That will cause some issues in this battle.
Indeed.
Maybe a little bit of foreshadowing here. But yeah, so Mueller retreats.
Eisenach comes in.
Eisenach moves in. He's the one who's very quiet. He commands
Snaps
entirely
fingers.
through hand gestures and snaps. Somehow, I love this one bit here where he makes this vague hand motion, and then his commandant is like, do this extremely elaborate tactical maneuver. It's I could tell because of the way Eisenach moved his fingers, and it's oh man, all right, whatever. Eisenach is fucking ridiculous, but he gets results, continues to wear down Yang's fleet.
Yep, he backs off, and Mittermeyer's underlings all go in.
Yeah.
They say that Reinhard refused to allow Mittermeyer back on the front lines after the close shave.
Yes, but he sends in Mittermeyer's fleet, which is led by, I see here, it's Burrow, Berlin, Sinzer, and Droysen, all under all part of Mittermeyer's fleet. They kind of point out that Yang keeps trying to resupply, back off, and rethink strategies, but Reinhard is just not giving him the time to do it. So they kind of move in. They kind of really bust some shit up. Yang decides to go for a forward charge here, kind of to kind of push them back, kind of catch, because now the thing that's happening, we keep talking about the pace of battle, right? Getting caught up in the pace of somebody's battle, is the way to explain that is basically when two sides are fighting in a battle, which side is acting and which side is reacting, and depending on how the battle goes, it is generally preferable to be the side that is acting, because the side that is reacting is just inherently going to have less tactical options. So Yang realizes that's what Reinhard's trying to do to him. He charges forward, breaks up the Mittermeyer fleet led by the younger, less experienced generals, and because of that,
the next line that was preparing to swap in, which was the Black Lancers and what remained of the Black Lancers and Fahrenheit fleet,
kind of consolidate into a single force. They get forestalled and kind of thrown into disarray because of Yang's forward push. He kind of launches a pincer attack on Bittenfeld, and we're once again kind of tragically reminded of just the sheer physical and material limitations of Yang's fleet.
Right. They point out that even though the Black Lancers were totally surrounded and being shot, they were still more powerful.
Yes, morale was higher. They were a fresher fleet. They kind of point out that Yang's fleet is tired. Yang is tired. Everybody is tired. They show multiple shots of people not explicitly messing up at their jobs, but they keep saying nah, people are tired. Efficiency is going down. Morale is falling. Yang's fleet is losing its combat effectiveness over the course of this battle, and because of that, because Yang's fleet just isn't big enough. They cannot break Bittenfeld. And this is kind of what I was alluding to at the very beginning of this podcast. That is this is the difference between an elite formation and a less elite formation, if this were any other fleet, any other commander, they might have broken, right? It might not even need to be a bad commander. It could have been that this is just because this is who Bittenfeld is. If it were Fahrenheit again here, or Steinmetz, or hell, even a Mittermeyer, or a Lutz or a Wallen, under this type of pressure, they might have broken, right? Because they might have realized, because even though we know that Yang's fleet is out of steam, they might not know that, right? And so under that kind of pressure, they might back off. The problem here that we see time and time again is that anytime a fleet tries to fight Bittenfeld, tries to break Bittenfeld, they themselves are broken on the rocks that are Bittenfeld and the Black Lancers. Their morale is too rock solid. Bittenfeld himself is too fucking either stupid or brave or confident to break under pressure.
Right. They point out that while they do force the Black Lancers to retreat, the Black Lancers have unwittingly dealt a fatal blow to the Yang
Yes,
fleet.
they make Yang's fleet pay in blood in this
Yes,
pincer formation.
the loss of the Shiva, Admiral Fischer's flagship, is confirmed.
Yes, that the Shiva has not returned from the battle. That Edwin Fischer tragically has been lost in this last battle.
Yep, and
They kind of point out like how traumatic of a loss this is for Yang, both tactically and morale wise. These are things that I kind of wish they had shown on screen. I wish they had given Edwin Fischer more screen time to better communicate this. I still understand the intent of this scene, but I think it is a shame that the narrator has to rely on exposition to explain to us why Edwin Fischer was so important. Like when we watch Fahrenheit or Steinmetz or even Silverburst, when we see those guys die, the show always spent the time and screen time to adequately communicate to us why those people are important to Reinhard.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't want to accuse Legend of Galactic Heroes of having an Empire bias, maybe just an Empire focus in terms of its screen time.
Yeah.
But like, I think that scenes like this suffer because we never get to see like, if we had seen Edwin Fischer like commanding in person time and time again, if Edwin Fischer was like the Mittermeyer of the Yang fleet or the Royenthal of the Yang fleet and was portrayed as such, I think this scene would have had more impact.
Yeah.
But instead, the narrator kind of relies on exposition to explain to us that, like, the reason why...
remember all that stuff that happened? That was totally Edwin Fischer.
Right. He basically explains, hey, all those times Yang succeeded, well, that's because Edwin Fischer was working behind the scenes, and you just didn't see it on screen. And It's like, I don't want to call the show lazy. Never in a million years would I ever call this show lazy. I would... But I think this is maybe... Like, I can't believe we're saying this. I think this is one of those cases where, like, this show doesn't have enough episodes. It doesn't. It really doesn't. I would go as far as say I think this show needs 50% more episodes than it has.
Oh boy!
To adequately cover the scope of what I think the story.
You wanted to cover this show for 2 years instead of a year and a half.
Yeah, I'm not even joking. I would be willing to if it meant that we got episodes devoted to guys like Fischer and Mirai. Like I think these characters are interesting, and I think they deserve episodes. I think they deserve them just as much as Mittermeyer or Royenthal or Bittenfeld.
Yes.
Like I think it is really tragic that we lose a guy like Fischer, a guy that, by all intents and purposes, seems like a cool guy. Like I remember. Even when we were watching the original DNT, like, and they introduced Edwin Fischer, and we were like, "This dude's all right." Like, like they had scenes of Edwin Fischer like commanding fleets, and I was like, "Oh, a smart FPA commander." and so it's a shame that we don't get to see more of that in the OVA. But yeah, so the narrator explains that like Edwin Fischer, like his specialty was like tactical maneuvering. That like time and time again, we see in this battle multiple times that the reason why Yang's fleet was so mobile, so nimble, was so able to like get into like the cracks of Reinhardt's formation like so quickly and effectively is because of like just Edwin Fischer's like mastery of, battlefield maneuvering, and that by losing Edwin Fischer, that Yang had essentially lost his left leg or something, that he had lost, a vital part of his tactical capability. And that if the Empire had known how serious of a blow they had just dealt to Yang, like if a fifth wave had shown up, like they say that explicitly, Yang's fleet would have broken then and there.
Like, they would have had to immediately retreat to Iserlohn Fortress.
Yes, that they would have. This battle would have been lost, but that didn't happen because the Empire doesn't know that. They do not know that, and Yang continues. If nothing else, even in his darkest moments, his tactical acumen allows him to, bring to keep up the facade of battlefield strength. And
also on the Empire side, they're dealing with their own shit.
Yes, because
Reinhard is passed out from illness.
Yes, Reinhard has fallen ill yet again. And
overworking
as a result,
himself.
Yeah, as a result, they've lost their tactical. They've basically lost the head of their formation, the linchpin of their formation. So a combination of not knowing how weak Yang is at this moment, combined with losing their commander, has kind of led the Empire leadership into a weird position. We see that Mittermeyer, Roenthal, and Hilda are basically discussing what do we do in this situation. We do not see Reinhard conscious for the rest of this episode.
Right. Reinthal suggests to withdraw for now.
Yes.
And keep Reinhard's illness secret.
Secret, yes. They do not need to know that Reinhard has fallen ill.
Yes, we get some numbers that they lost 2 million soldiers and about 24,000 ships.
Yes.
And retreat from the corridor.
Yes. Let us point out that Yang's fleet is about 20,000 ships.
Yes.
So,
like they've already, like if you count the earlier, part one of the battle, they've destroyed like twice as many ships as they had to start with.
Yes, like the total casualties for Reinhard's fleet is almost 40,000 ships, and I think almost 3 million men. And again, like, let's not get it twisted. This is all on Reinhard. Like, you could say that Yang pushed his hand, forced his hand by capturing Iserlohn and turning it into the bastion of democracy. But like, this is a war of Reinhard's own choosing. He has said time and time again in as poetic of a manner, like, oh, am I a warmonger? Like, yes, Reinhard, you are a warmonger. Like, let's not get it twisted. These men are dead because of you. They're dead on your hands. Yes, they impaled themselves on Yang's like lasers, but that's because you forced them to. And
so we get some time. Yang's ship, as everyone's extremely tired. Frederica's like barely on her feet. They get a message from Kaiser Reinhard saying offering a ceasefire and peace talks.
Yes, the battle has been called off. It's kind of a very, it's not, in many ways, I think we want to discuss this a little bit more, so I won't get into it now. But in many ways, on its face, this is a tactical and strategic victory for Yang Wenli. This is what he was hoping to get, right?
Yeah.
Like, Yang never thought he could win this battle, but he was hoping he could make it a tiring enough affair to at least drag Reinhard to the table. And if nothing else, this could maybe gain some concessions. We kind of see how the people react on multiple sides. Bittenfeld is quite pissed off about this, because he thinks that they are on the verge of winning, and we would find out that he is correct. But
we get everybody returns to Iserlohn, and basically the second they're no longer in danger of being shot down, just fall asleep where they stand.
Everybody collapses. Yang barely makes it to his bed. Everybody else just like straight up just falls asleep on the floor.
We're told this is like May 18th, so they've been fighting for 10 days straight.
Yes, 10 days, likely with little sleep. Maybe at most they got those like super 1 hour sleep beds, but even then, like, they have been fighting day in and day out constantly. And
so like, Yang, how are you going to respond to the message? It's just like, I can't think right now. I'm just
going to take a nap. Yeah, and it's just like, you see like basically the only people left conscious on this whole ship left are Kazalnu and Shenkov.
Yeah.
It's like,
even like Schneider is like, like such a lack of discipline, falling asleep. What if the enemy attacks, gets into an elevator, immediately falls asleep?
Right, Merkatz himself says, dog, I'm going to sleep right now. Like, I don't fucking care. And yes, Schneider himself falls asleep in the elevator. It's a very good scene, but it's also a very like hard to watch scene. It really communicates to you like just the human cost of warfare, not just lives, but like the emotional and mental toll warfare has on people. I think a lot of media does not really portray war exhaustion in a way, in this kind of way. Like, like I think at most in like a lot of fiction, the battle will show like, oh, the hero is tired, but blah, blah, blah. But like, I think this battle does a really good job just showing like how tiring war is, like,
right.
It is not an energetic affair, and,
indeed.
I think with that kind of the episode kind of comes to a close, kind of the last shot on Yang's face. He just looks like fucking shit. Like, forget this bed, dude. Forget the super bed. Yang needs a full 8 hours of sleep in the super bed.
Yeah.
Like a super bed where you get a full night's sleep in 1 hour. I think he needs a full 8 hours in the super bed because he is not looking great.
Yep. And that wraps up the episode. Though I do want to talk about the like immediate question on my mind at the end of this episode.
I want to talk about this too. Yeah,
I've like related to the ceasefire thing. Like, we have no way of. Again, I think this will be explained within the first 2 minutes of the next episode.
It
But
always
like,
is.
I think the question is there of whether that was actually sent by Reinhard or not.
Yeah, no, I think
Because as far as we know, he's like unconscious. Reinthal, I think it's potentially just a scheme cooked up by Mittermeyer, Reinthal, and Hilda to back off to create some space for everyone.
Yes, I think that is definitely a worthwhile theory to bring up. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You can finish.
And alternatively, like, is this perhaps Reinhard being so fed up that he's going to call Yang to peace talks and just get him
Just
when
like
he's
fucking,
with his guards down?
yeah, just like fucking pull a gun out from under the table
Right,
and just
pull
blast Yang.
like a blatantly dishonorable maneuver.
And
of the like of which he has announced over the entire show.
Yeah, and I think that's really an interesting thing to bring up because again, we only hear of the message. We do not know who sent the message. We don't see Reinhard conscious. Like it in many ways, this ceasefire is not in character with Reinhard, right? Like Reinhard wishes for nothing more than the complete and definitive defeat of Yang Wen Li.
I see no reason, like if we had not gotten stuff of Reinhard falling ill, I see no reason he would not have just put together a 5th, 6th, 7th battle line.
Because Reinhard has the numbers for it. He has the fleet strength, and they're not tired. Like we only see the exhausting toll of war on the Empire's side in Reinhard. Because he just works himself too hard. But like everybody else, everybody else we see on the Empire side,
it's like they got tired, so they rotated out.
Yeah, they look pretty fresh. Like they're looking okay. Like they look like they're ready for more. I mean, look at Bittenfeld. Bittenfeld literally said like Bittenfeld's literally put me in chief, put me back in chief. Like they're weak. I can take them right now by myself. You could send me in with the Black Lancers by myself, and I bet I could take them. Like. And you know what? That's the thing. Bittenfeld might not be wrong. Like Yang's fleet is on the verge of collapse, and I think the only thing stopping that is that they don't know it. Yeah. And the narrator says it literally at the end of this episode. If Reinhard's fleet attacked Iserlohn right now, like it would keel
when
over
everyone's fucking asleep.
Yeah. And it's like so. I think it's an interesting theory you brought up that like both sides of it. Like, did Reinhard actually send it? And even if he did, is he actually sincere about it? And I will push back on the second part. I'm willing to believe the Reinhard message is actually ginned up by Reuenthal, Mittermeyer, and Hilda. I'm not sure I believe in the idea of Reinhard going for this kind of trick, because I think that based on what we know about Reinhard's personality, like Reinhard does not care as deeply about setting historical precedents as Yang.
Right.
But we have to look at what are his motivations for fighting Yang. So at the core of Reinhard's like mentality about Yang Wen Li is that he fears that history will judge him because he could not beat Yang Wen Li, right? Yeah. That the Battle of Vermilion does not count as a victory for him.
He cannot stand to be like he cannot stand the like potential possibility that someone was able to stand against him.
Yes. That in the history of his entire reign, that he was not the complete and total ruler of the galaxy, right? And so he believes that, and based on what Reinhard has rationalized for himself, okay, this is based on what he has said on screen, based on his self-rationalization of his actions, he must defeat Yang in open battle to prove his dominion over the galaxy. Now, and the reason for that, he believes that the more logical reason for that is also as long as Yang survives, as long as Yang persists, and as long as Yang remains undefeated, there will always be an undercurrent of dissent against the Empire, right?
According
to him, he believes that as long as Yang exists and exists undefeated, that there will always be an undercurrent of dissent fermenting in the Empire that, well, sure, Reinhard's great and the Empire is great, but he didn't beat Yang. Like, did he really beat the FPA? Like, sure, the FPA no longer exists, but did he beat Yang Wen Li? Like, who is like the true, like...
Yes.
It could be, maybe not now, not in the time of now, but like in 20, 30, 40 years, I could totally see people in the Empire be like, especially in the former FPA territories, go like, you know what? Yang Wen-li was the true spirit of the FPA. Like, Yang Wen-li was the symbol of the FPA. And symbols are powerful, you know? Look at Ali Heinesen. Symbols carry a lot of weight. And because of that mentality, I do not think that Reinhard would go for, like, a Game of Thrones Red Wedding style, like, trick. Because, A, that is not within his personality based on what we have seen.
Mm-hmm.
B, even if it were within his personality, it would set a very bad precedent for his rulership. You know,
I agree.
Like, we discussed this in the last podcast. Like, if you, you know, I think you put it a great way the other day, Iro. Like, if you kill somebody at lunch, they're not going to meet with you for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you set a precedent that you are willing to murder people under, like, what is ostensibly, like, peaceful talks, where two sides have extended goodwill and trust to each other. You will never be trusted ever again. Like your reputation has a permanent black mark on it. And I think even if Reinhard was tempted to actually, like, just straight up fucking stab Yang while shaking his hand, I think he would hold off on it because he knows, like, what that would do to his reputation and to the reputation of the Empire. Now, that said, if next episode we find out...
the possibility is there.
I agree. I think the possibility is there. But I think that unless the next episode reveals that, like, fucking Lang or Oberstein sent that ceasefire message,
right?
I don't think that Reinhard himself... I don't think Reinhard himself would engineer a plan like that.
What about Royenthal?
Here's the thing with Royenthal. Royenthal is a sneak, but he's not that kind of sneak. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think Royenthal, and, like, I think it's very easy to think of Royenthal as that kind of shady, like, duplicitous motherfucker. But I feel like Royenthal is also the kind of guy that, like, he won't admit it, but, like, he wants to fight fair, or as fair as he can. You know?
Yeah.
Like I think, like, you know, because look at Royenthal's distaste for Lang and Oberstein.
Yeah.
I think that as long as Lang and Oberstein exist as, like, contrasts for, like, good...
I'll never stoop to their level.
Right. Because I think in a weird ways, Oberstein actually exists as, like, a linchpin that is holding the rest of Reinhardt's admirals to a higher moral standard, because he exists as such a tangible example of how slimy you can be in the Empire. Like, guys like Royenthal, who might consider that option if Oberstein wasn't there, like... Right, Royenthal takes one look at Oberstein and is like, I'll never be as bad. I'll never sink to his level. Like, you know, I might commit treason against Reinhard someday, but I'll never backstab him or something.
Yeah.
But I think it is a worthwhile thing to speculate about, and I think that, again, this is why I love this podcast, and this is why we insist on not watching the next episode previews.
That'll be fucking proven wrong in 2 minutes.
Yes, for all of you listening, like, if our conversation is infuriating you, know that we are working off of zero future knowledge. We are literally testing based on to the best of our ability. We have no fucking clue what happens next. Like,
we're not watching the previews.
Yeah, like, fucking Andrew Ford could fucking bust in through a vent during the peace talks. Like, knife and gun in hand with a bomb vest on him.
God,
and we would have no fucking clue. But you know what? Now that I said that out loud, what if that's what happens?
Yeah, it might be. I mean, it's Earth Cult subjective. They got Andrew Fork in to kill Yang Wen-li.
What if Andrew Fork disrupts the peace talks? Oh, shit.
I believe Andrew Fork hit a bazooka inside of a corpse.
Oh, man. I have one last topic I want to discuss before we finish up, though. And that is related to Reinhardt's health.
Yeah.
We keep saying, Reinhard keeps getting sick because, he just works too hard. He just cares too much.
Uh-huh.
I'm beginning to suspect,
like, he's been getting sick a lot.
Yeah, he's been getting sick pretty often. Or at least they've been showing him getting sick pretty often on screen. I'm beginning to wonder, is Reinhard actually as healthy as he looks?
Right. Does he actually have some, like, chronic condition that...
yes. I was about to say...
that only Emil von Sekla knows about.
Right. Like, what if... and I'm just saying, this is a long shot. What if, in the greatest turn of irony, just like when Rudolph's, like, child, like, had a mental disability, right? After enacting his, like, eugenics laws.
Mm-hmm.
What if the greatest like irony of Reinhard's rise to rule is like, oh, actually he has a yet to be diagnosed like chronic illness. Like,
Anime terminal disease.
yeah, I'm
He'll
not
be
even
dead
joking.
before 30.
Right. Like, what if we find out that actually Reinhardt's going to be dead by 40? Like, and like, yes, he does overwork himself, but the overworking is just it's just exacerbating what is already there, right? Like, I'm not going full on like, oh, Reinhardt's got fucking
Conspiracy theory.
tuberculosis,
Right.
but like, I'm just saying he's getting sick a lot, and I think this show because this is Legend of the Galactic Heroes, because of what this show is,
Yes.
I feel like they would not keep showing us scenes of Reinhardt getting sick like this unless this was going to pay off eventually. And I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy here. Maybe this is all just meant to like say, oh, this is how hard Reinhardt works, and this shows the inherent weakness of an autocratic government, where like when the head gets sick and when the head is indisposed of, the rest of the body like falls apart, right? Like maybe that's all there is to this. But I feel like, look, man, Jan got sick once. And Yang, I guarantee you, is working as hard as Reinhard. I refuse to believe Yang has a better immune system than Reinhard, considering
how much he
lifestyle.
Yeah.
Considering the lifestyle Yang has, I feel like he should be getting sick way more often than Reinhard.
Yeah.
So I feel like it is all the more striking how often Reinhard like gets indisposed of because of like
right, like last time we saw Jan get sick, he had a cold and was drinking hot liquor.
Yeah, and he was like bouncing back.
Reinhard got sick, he was also unconscious.
Yeah, like were they putting like a rebreather on his face at the end of that scene?
Yeah, it was hooked up to like a vitals monitor.
Sure, okay, like a vitals monitor. My bad. I thought they hooked him up to like an oxygen mask or something. I was like, oh shit, this might be more serious than it looks. But
you see, that's what pushes him to desperately shoot Yang Wei over lunch.
he's like what Reinhardt's just like, I only got 20 years to live. Black.
You know, if he doesn't kill Yang Wei now when he's got him right where he wants him, like when will he ever get the chance?
Yeah, exactly. When will he? But you know, I think we'll find out when we watch the next episode.
Yeah.
So you know, with that, I think we're gonna call this a podcast. So we're gonna just take care of the housekeeping as long as they're getting these days. As always, you can read all of our content and listen to this podcast on theglorioblog.com. You can follow us at Twitter at theglorioblog.com. You can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Google Play, all that shit. You know the score. You can watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes on High Dive and VRV. If it falls under your interests, maybe check out our other sister podcasts, those being the GLORIO Chat, Neon Genesis Evanglorio, and Glorio's King of the Kaiju.
Mm-hmm. I would like to say that Neon Genesis Evanglorio is entering its final episode.
Yes, we are coming to a close on that. And we're gonna have to find a new podcast to fill that time slot, I guess.
I'm telling you, King of Braves, Glorio.
Not until I finish watching Zeta Gundam. So, you know, it's a long time coming. And I'm not watching Zeta Gundam until we finish Legend of the Galactic Heroes Gaiden. So it's gonna be a while. You're stuck on this journey across the Sea of Stars for a while to come, Iro.
Oh boy.
But in all seriousness, as always, thank you all for listening. Iro, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for accompanying me on this journey.
Thank you for driving the ship for a full year.
Yes, and hopefully for the many years to come.
Oh God.
And until next time, we will see you amongst the Sea of Stars.